Everybody, welcome back. Happy Friday. This is December 1st. It is Friday, obviously. Today's discussion is going to look at the responses to the amount of jazz, drinking, organized crime. The new social changes of the 1920s obviously led to a lot of backlash for people that weren't connected to the 1920s culture at that time period. All right, so we start off the class looking at the bell ringer about the American educational policy on teaching religion in public schools. You know, what is it? For many people that have been in public school, probably they've never sat in a class and learned about religion as truth or religion as a whole. And if you have talked about religions, you probably talked about all different religions at once, or at least at different times throughout the year. But at the same time, you don't take a class on religion in the school and think of it as truth about what you're said, what you learned in that is actually true. That stuff literally happened. You don't learn that here in this school. The reason for that, and that's what I kind of want you to provide for the bell ringer, if you want to pause it now to kind of get your answer for that, as to why you believe that public schools don't teach religion. You can pause that now and take care of that answer. For those of you that already answered this, the reason is because the government, and especially for public schools that are funded by the state, they want to see the separation of church and state. If someone started teaching a religion in this school is a diverse population. Not everybody is Christian, not everybody is Muslim, not everybody is Jewish, not everybody is Confucian or Taoist or anything else in that way. But or Wiccan, if people should choose that particular faith. However, with this particular idea, if you start teaching one religion, you begin to disenfranchise all the others, the same people that pay the taxes that everybody else does. All right, since everybody pays taxes, you cannot choose one religion and say, okay, we're going to teach this and just ignore all the others. All right, that is very dangerous ground when you get into education, especially in public schools. Now, private schools doesn't matter. You're going to places like Bishop McDevitt, Trinity, other schools that it's private, you kind of have to pay to go to. They can teach whatever they need to there. They can make their own curriculum. The curriculum is not driven by the state, and the students who go there, the parents choose for them to go there. So that's kind of what it's all about. But if you decide to do it in public schools, because there are students in the school that are not Christian or Catholic or Jewish or Muslim or anything else that we look at as religion in this country, if you're not part of that, you're going to begin to disenfranchise other people. All right, and that's what we're talking about today with, excuse me, the 1920s. In terms of individuals at this time period still believe that teaching religion in public schools is the way to go. And we're talking about the battle for this idea in class today. Excuse me. So with the 1920s, the new changes in culture brought a lot of skepticism and a lot of fear into people. So individuals turned to the fundamentalist movement. This movement believes, or at least draws people to the beliefs that includes traditional Christian ideas about Jesus. The Bible is inspired by God and is exactly literal. Again, for these notes today, I want you to make sure you go to Canvas and download this note sheet so you can get all these notes. So please make sure you take care of that. So download it, print it, write these notes down. Many of these fundamentalists believe that the Bible is inspired by God and is literal. I asked the question then, would you say flappers followed these ideas or cared about these ideas? Most people in the classes probably said no, and they would be absolutely correct. Flappers were the ones that were pushing the new style forward, the new ideas, the new society forward here in the 1920s. So with flappers doing this, we can definitely see that the United States is moving in a new direction, and flappers are not part of the group that wants to keep America back to this state of religious, social normalcy. All right. But when we look at who did, it's not only a matter of men versus women, but it's a matter of race. It's also a matter of where people are growing up, culture. Where are you growing up geographically in this country? All right. So obviously, more men than women probably allocated to some of these ideas. A lot of women did follow the fundamentalist movement. I'm not saying that wasn't the case, but you look at people that follow this. The culture is being driven visually by women, and jazz music is being something that is started and created in Harlem with African Americans. Obviously, the majority of people who follow the fundamentalist movement are white males. And a lot of these white males, if they are not living in the cities, or it also depends where they live. A lot of white males that live in the cities follow this modern change of social life in America. The fundamentalists, however, geographically speaking, are probably more centrally located in the southern central parts of the country, like Tennessee, Kentucky, West Virginia, southern parts of Ohio, Indiana, other parts of the country that kind of, just are not involved in the cities. And this happens everywhere you go. If you go somewhere in the country today, if you go to a city, obviously you're going to see some newer, more strange things that you would see in the in the cities that you have never seen before. But if you go to the more rural, if you go to the urban areas of the country, you'll see those strange things. Excuse me. If you go to the rural areas of the country, you will see ideas or people, fashion styles of people that are part of a trend that happened maybe 5 years ago. So what goes where and when it happens usually starts in the cities, which is what happens in the 1920s. But then as you look at the geography of the country in terms of who accepts these ideas, more than likely the last groups of people are in the rural areas. So you're looking at rural areas, central parts of the country, like Tennessee, Kentucky. These are the individuals that really are going to try to keep this fundamentalist movement on point. Now, next we talk about is a trial that kind of debates the idea of religion and also the theory of evolution. And that's what this guy is up here. This is Charles Darwin. This is, again, his body is not the case, but this is a cartoonist who tried to poke fun of Charles Darwin, saying that, he's an ape just like what he's claiming that humans came from, like ape-like creatures. But anyways, 1925 is the Butler Act in Tennessee. It states it shall be unlawful for any teacher to teach any theory that denies the story of the divine creation of man as taught in the Bible, and to teach instead that man has descended from lower order of animals. So, the idea is that the Butler Act wants to make sure that teachers in schools in Tennessee will teach about creationism. The fact that, a Christian God creates the heavens and the earth in 7 days, and creates everything that is on earth as is. That we are perfectly created in this God's image and in the idea that, nothing has changed since he created us. Alright? Darwin changes all of that with evolution. The theory of evolution in schools, that humans come from a lesser form of beings. And we have physical proof to prove that today. The idea that there were Neanderthals that existed. We found the skeletons of these individuals. They've been dug up from the ground. The fossils have been dug up to prove that these animals walked the face of the earth. So this idea that the divine creation begins and has us thinking about that we were created as this divine creator wanted us to look, that's something that becomes questioned. And this questioning, specifically in Tennessee, becomes something that many people don't want to expect. So the theory that the law is forbidding is the idea of evolution. The theory of evolution is forbidding in Tennessee. All right. So the court case is about two different sides: fundamentalists versus modernists. The modernists, obviously, being parts of jazz and the cities, they're the ones that really want to see the country change a little bit more in terms of its ideals. Fundamentalists want to keep them the same. Fundamentalists believe that the Bible is literally inspired and literally because of God. God inspired it. Billy Sunday is one of the preachers that goes and speaks around the country about these issues, about the Bible and God, and how drinking and jazz and all this stuff is corrupting our children, is making Americans more corruptible, and thus we're escaping what makes Americans good in the Christian view. All right. So Billy Sunday is a preacher. I have a video about it. It's on my Canvas page. You want to watch it. It's there, but you can see kind of how fervent he is when he talks about his ideas. It's not just about what he says, it's how he says it. He talks in a very excited. He talks also using a lot of hand gestures, a lot of big hand movements, a lot of big body movements. You'll see him talking with, again, he talks with a lot of conviction when he gives his speeches and gives his speeches and lectures. So when you have William Jennings Bryan, who's a prosecuting attorney in this case for the Scopes trial, he's prosecuting this guy, John T. Scopes. I have a handout here that we handed out in class talking about what was in the textbooks that he taught, about the lectures. But the Bible at this point, according to the modernists, is a document written by humans, and it contained contradictions. So the Bible here is inspired by God, and the difference is that the Bible is written by humans and contains contradictions. John T. Scopes is the teacher that teaches evolution in schools, and as a result, he is arrested for violating this Butler Act. All right. So Clarence Darrow is his attorney. These two guys are the top two legal minds in the entire country. It's like pitting the top two lawyers in today's country, in today's United States, together in a case and having the entire country pay attention to it. All right. Now the results of the trial are as follows. And this really shouldn't have taken that long. It really should have taken only 2 hours, or if not maybe 45 minutes for the case. All the court was trying to figure out is, did Scopes teach evolution in his biology class? If yes, then he's guilty. Scopes, under testimony, verbally admitted to this action of teaching evolution about his biology class, and this came with a guilty charge and a guilty verdict with a charge and a fine of $100. So the case really should have only taken 45 minutes. However, this case becomes so much more. Traditional values versus modern beliefs. These new modern ideas that are coming into the cities, that are now stretching out to the public of the rural areas of the country, in the Tennessees and the Kentuckys. Are people willing to accept this? If so, what are they going to do to state their case as to why they believe so. But people that have traditional values feel like they're losing a grip on their control, at least their understanding of life. And they feel backed into a corner. If you know anything that's backed into a corner, it's going to fight much harder to make sure it's not either captured, killed, or whatever. And it's not about being killed here with your traditional values. It's just a metaphor saying that they feel like their grip on life and as they know it is being lost due to the modern beliefs. All right, that's the biggest issue at hand here. Okay, so these are the results of the case. And I asked the question with the lead discussion in class, and you can think about this on your own right now, is who do you think held the upper edge in this argument? Was it the traditionalists or was it the modernists and the arguments that they made? Obviously, we know from what we see back then, but this is kind of the skepticism, the fear that many Americans had. They wanted to hold on to the traditional values because the 1920s was about changing with modern beliefs, women becoming flappers, getting jobs, working outside the home, and not getting married until a much later age than they normally would have before. You're looking at jazz music, African Americans pushing the culture forward, and many Americans taking hold of that culture. And again, these people with traditional values don't want to see this lost. So this is a really, really big issue that is discussed in 1920s America at this time. All right. Next, we have to talk about an issue about a group of people who also see the growth of the United States completely change at this time period. Is the Ku Klux Klan. Obviously, the KKK members see that jazz and African Americans with jazz in the United States it's growing. The love for African Americans is growing, and that's definitely something that they don't want to see happen. They use hatred as their goal. And again, I asked the class, who did the Klan direct their hatred and violence to? And we go over a list of these. You can write these lists of individuals, from African Americans to many people who were Jewish to individuals who were foreign. They really wanted to pit them versus us. We're one of those. We're the groups that are pure, that have the right goals intended for this country, and these new ideas are definitely not those same issues, and they don't agree with us, so we're not going to follow it. So the hatred in America is really driven by the Ku Klux Klan, and membership grows in the 1920s because of these individuals, of these members of the Klan that do not want to see the country lead down this road that they think is going to be really, really bad. But very short growth spurt this time period. 1922, there's 100,000 members. In 1925, there's about 4 million members. So as you can tell, a lot of people are in fear and very skeptical of some of these modern changes that are occurring in the 1920s society. And these people want to join a group, or at least be a part of something that will give them some security that they're going to hold on to their values. And the Ku Klux Klan has a very hateful way of doing that. And I'm not going to say that this is good that the growth happened, but this is something that we have to pay attention to, because while there's changes happening with prohibition, with drinking, with alcohol, with jazz music, with African Americans becoming centers of culture in America, many people don't want to see that happen, and they join these groups out of fear, out of almost a knee-jerk reaction to try to keep hold of what they know is right with the country and what should exist in this country. So that's what we have to talk about today. Just make sure you copy these notes down, go back and pause if you need to see some of the slides. But this is all we get to at this point. If you have any questions, please don't be afraid to let me know. Email me, give me something that you need. But again, use these videos. Make sure you get on and look at these if you ever miss days of class. All right? Thank you very much. Have a fantastic weekend.